While we've had many new entries into the Star Wars universe over the last few years, Andor and now Skeleton Crew are the only ones that have been drastically expanding the universe in meaningful ways. But this recent episode really changes how the galaxy has worked over the last few hundred or thousand years. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
Most recent episode of Skeleton's Crew is heating up. It's got so many of the things that I've really come to enjoy about the show, and it's really just showcasing all of the best things that Star Wars has to offer. Like, it's obviously got there's moments throughout the season that showcase the volume in ways that you're like, yep, that's the volume. And there are some scenes in this episode that definitely do that. But as a whole, like, I think it's very robust. Overall, it's a very good Star Wars. It's honestly like if every Star Wars thing was this kind of Star Wars, I'd be perfectly happy.
Mm-hmm. They're definitely doing different things and creating a story that we just don't see in Star Wars. And it's really refreshing. I'm very much enjoying it.
Yeah, so we're on episode 7. We are the penultimate episode, the one before the end, and things are heating up. There's a lot of mysteries that are still progressing, and I think it's quite fascinating when we look at this in the whole context of the Star Wars galaxy. So this show takes place, as far as the timeline is concerned, around the same time, if not the same year as The Mandalorian, seasons 1 through 3, because Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau don't know how to count, and Ahsoka and Book of Boba Fett. Like, apparently all of these things are happening around the same time frame. But the thing about Skeleton Crew that's quite fascinating is this is the galaxy as seen from both the perspective of a child and also the perspective of an Old Republic child. Yeah. Because as the story has progressed, we've gotten more and more details around how this planet at Aten and these kids are all part of the society that is quite fully functional. It is very robust. It seems like it's been going on for quite some time, but because of the things the kids know outside of about the outside of the galaxy, we can basically assume that they do not have any knowledge of the last 100+ years, maybe even 1,000 years, depending on like what time frame of the Old Republic, because they're minting Old Republic credits.
Oh yeah,
and they are Republic credits to the kids, not the Old Republic.
Yeah, and as we saw them kind of exploring the world outside of their bubble, there's a lot of things that they're like, what is that? Like, what even is this? Or it's just fascinating to see them just exploring a world that we know so well. Yes. And we're just like, you guys don't know this and you live in the world? Like, come on. But yeah, so it's really fun seeing that perspective again.
It's really fun. It kind of calls back to this, like the first season of Mandalorian, where Mando was a character within Star Wars that didn't know the big players within Star Wars. So you kind of like pop him as into the galaxy as this kind of like an amorphous character that doesn't know the context of the broader galaxy. He's more so the man on the ground. Unfortunately, they slowly step away from that, at least in season 2, and then very quickly step away from it in season 3. But there is that shine from like the Mandalorian to this, which is cool.
It's also a call to our own nostalgia in a very subtle way, which I appreciate, where it's us exploring Star Wars again, as children, as seeing whenever we come in.
Kids,
So yeah, it's a great nod to all of us nerds out there.
It is great, and I think I saw someone describe Skeleton Crew as the closest something that Disney has produced is to A New Hope. New Hope specifically, and I think that is a very good comparison, because you have like Andor, I think, is the best thing that Disney has done in Star Wars, and you have it being much more so connected to like The Empire Strikes Back in terms of the tone and the subject matter of like this very heavily war-based Star Wars project. And now you have Skeleton Crew on the opposite side of things, bringing it into the Star Wars. So you kind of have this like mix of the both that I think are very good, and I think they need that balance. And if they kept on doing stuff stuff like Skeleton Crew and also Andor, you have the full spectrum. And if they keep the quality, I'd be very happy. I'd be very happy to never see another Mandalorian thing in the TV shows, and that would be awesome. This episode, very good. Now let's get into spoilers.
Yeah.
So some things here. We have the characters claiming the ship back, obviously, that we saw in the last episode. They get on board and they're on their way to Aden. Jod is also there. He has convinced the crew to go and look at what Aden has to offer. There is a barrier that is a toxic storm that actually calls back to some of like the Battlefront 2 campaign, where you have these big electronic or mechanical pillars that affect the I think it was Project Cinder, that they basically sent these stations on these various planets to affect the weather and control planets. So you kind of have that kind of technology, which is interesting. They are trying to figure out a way to get onto the planet. The ship is the key to get on the planet. Kids lose control of SM-33, gain control back of SM-33, are on the way to the planet. John comes in, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is intense, quite funny at moments, but the real stuff happens when they get onto Aden.
Yes.
I'm going to be very fascinated to see what the timelines of this whole thing is, because they say that the secret that the ship is part of the Republic embassy or whatever, emissary, and that's why it doesn't get shot down. But I don't understand how the whole legend gets built around the Onyx Cinder if it is a new planet, unless Tak Renaud would leave that planet and then come back to it periodically. I don't understand what that whole timeline looks like.
Right.
I think that might be a plot hole. We'll see. There's obviously one more episode to go, but I think there is. You called it very early on that Tak Renaud is probably the supervisor, and I think that is true, but that supervisor's been dead a long time.
Yeah. Or, I don't know, back to tanks do wonders too, so who knows? It would make sense why we've never seen the supervisor, because he's not actually there. Why everything's run by robots?
Yes,
because he's not actually there, and just kind of doing the will. Clearly, he has a thing for robots.
Yes,
Loves
a robot. Tak Renaud
loves
does.
a robot. Loves to give them all the information they ever needed to know to run everything.
Yes.
So yeah. Also, I don't know. I think my theory is even stronger now. Just seeing how much wealth is there too.
Yes.
Like, come on, this guy was making a stash for himself or something. This is his hoard.
So you see this planet, its place in the galaxy, and the reason why it is so important for it to say secret and secure from the rest of the galaxy is it is meant for the Republic, the old Republic, not the new Republic that we were all like familiar with the Mandoverse time period. The old Republic. This was a key hub, a jewel of the old Republic, is what the creator said. And I find it so fascinating that they have continued to expand on it. Obviously, there are continuing vaults. They're continuing to do this work to create the mines. But I feel like, and it's indicative by the landing pad and it being covered on a soccer field or whatever, and it being so clearly not used, that this emissary ship coming back it's something that hasn't happened in a very long time. Probably decades, probably centuries.
Yep.
And it is so fascinating to see this kind of like society built up. I also love the fact that it's there's an allegory in terms of the design, that there's this capitalistic view of this planet, and to make all of the money, they needed to basically recreate this suburbia, which was like the foundations of capitalism in America in terms of how capitalism works in America. So I think that's quite fascinating that they would use that choice to have this huge correlation. That's besides the fact. But you have like this world built up around the production of these credits, minting these New Republic credits. But the supervisor clearly is not someone who is running this in connection with any organization or government. And I find that so fascinating. I do wonder, like, what is the next step for whatever happens on this planet, or whatever happens to Jod, whatever happens to the kids, whatever happens to the parents, whatever they find past this sheen of like perfection, I do wonder what those next steps are. Like, what happens once these people figure out that, hey, there is no supervisor. The supervisor's dead. Like, this is why robots have run everything, and this is why we can't talk to the supervisor.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think my biggest question is why? Like, why have this? Why the secrecy? Why all of this? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of like, because it wouldn't work otherwise, but why do the work? You know, like, why have this minting thing? I mean, obviously wealth and prosperity and all this stuff.
Well, that's where like my theory of that the supervisor's probably dead, or at least on life support or whatever, maybe floating in a back to tank and his brain's all mush or whatever. Like, clearly his plan was to continue making that money, continuing to operating as if nothing else happened. Tak Renod probably, as a pirate, knew exactly what was happening in the galaxy and decided to further build this kind of like legend and this hunt around like this Aten as this like fake treasure land. Because if people are over here looking at it over here trying to find it, they're never going to look over here where it actually is.
Yeah.
Clearly, he would probably know, considering his past as well, that the galaxy was probably on the downturn. And knew that to be successful, chilling out on this planet at Aten would probably be perfectly fine, building his wealth, maybe leaving to continue the legend of Tak Renod as this legendary pirate. And maybe he crashes. I don't know. There's a lot of like these missing pieces on this theory, because like, why was the crash ship there? Why did he leave SM-33 there? What was this whole practice? Like, if this is clearly a Republic emissary ship, how did he get it in the first place for it to crash here? Clearly the crash was not the first time that he got to the planet. Maybe something went wrong, and that's why the city, like the whole planet's on like autopilot. Right. There are a lot of questions still in terms of like why the things are happening and like those missing pieces. But I do find it fascinating that the skeleton crew is building on this kind of like the infrastructure of the galaxy.
Yeah, that's true. I'm really fascinated with Tak Renod and where he fits in this story. I still think that my theory is really strong, but what if it's not? Like, what if it's not him? What if it's just the old guy? Because I'm trying to like think, when did he get here? Because clearly it must have been something. I don't think he was the one who created the whole thing.
No, he clearly was not the one that created the whole thing, but
he's the one who kind of made it what it is. Yeah. Who kind of made it its own little thing, and not attached to the others.
I don't even think it's that. I think they were already planning on creating the barrier and all these things to keep it separate and secret to protect it from that. He's just the one that found it. Yeah. And then basically made it his own. Yeah. That's the theory. Like, I think that's how it works. Like, if Tak Renod is the supervisor, I think the only way that it works for him to be the supervisor is for him to basically take control of it and pretend like nothing ever happened. Yeah. Yeah. At least from the people that are actually working in this. Like, clearly these people don't know who the supervisor is. Like, they work on various levels of the structure, or I don't know, civilization, whatever, community. They're at different levels, but they're clearly working on this bigger purpose, but they don't know what they're doing. Like, their supervisors are the robots. Right. For all intents and purposes. For how secretive the whole show has been about his face, it really makes me think that he's here. Like, it really makes me think that this is the guy. So I'll be really fascinated to see what they do in the last episode. We do hear the voice. Yeah. It's an old man's voice. So I'm very fascinated to see what direction this ultimately goes. I think you have Skeleton Crew showing like the back ends of like the history of the galaxy in terms of the infrastructure. And then you have like Andor that's showing the people side of it, the people side of the rebellion. How do we get here? How are people motivated? How does a rebellion get built? And then this is kind of like the remnants of a civilization that's long gone. Yeah. Because this is truly the last piece of the old republic. The other planets like at Akron and all of these other areas, they were sister planets that had very similar paths, but clearly were decided that the mint was the most important. Maybe the fact that it was protected is because of Tack Renaud.
Yeah. Maybe he went in through all the other ats and cleared them out, got the wealth, and brought it all to the one.
It's possible. But yeah, like, and the fact that they have so many vaults, clearly they just keep on building them because there's 1,139.
Yeah.
And this is clearly the first time an emissary has come to pick something up.
Truly.
All of the systems are built to be automatic. And if the supervisor was still alive, why would he be so chill and calm about that over the intercom? Mm-hmm. That's definitely a pre-recorded message. Mm-hmm. So there's like all of these different pieces that are like so well put together, and we're just trying to just to wait and see for them to align.
Yep. It's really interesting to see the galaxy through a pirate's like perspective, though, especially if what we say is true, and if our theory is that Tack Renaud took over this planet, maybe more.
Yeah.
Like what that means for this old Republic planet, you know? It's like, wait, so you guys got infiltrated by a big pirate.
The pirate.
And now we have another pirate of the day coming in. Like, it's just going to be really interesting. It'll be interesting regardless of what actually happens. Like, obviously, I'm very invested in this, but like just to see John in a hoard of money, you know, just be like, what? Which is, in our theory, another pirate's like hoard that he's created, pretty much. Like, what? Wow, this is just so fascinating. Like, it's really fascinating to think of a pirate retiring in this suburbia. Like, yeah, this is my life now. I'm just king of the little suburbia planet, and I'm good. Like, is that really it? Is that it for the adventure? Maybe that's the whole story with Wim and why he's like,
here we go, back to
mundane,
life. Gotta go take my school test again.
Right. It's like, but maybe that's the goal of the pirate. You know, like maybe the goal is, this is the prize. The prize is to be settled and comfortable, and I don't know.
It is so fascinating because you also get like the thing that John says is like, you're children of comfort and privilege and you're sheltered. Like, that is basically what you're saying. Like, that is, he has grown his whole life fighting for every single scrap of thing that he's had. Now he's on this planet where it's protected from the outside forces. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Money's never, if this is successful, he never has to worry about money ever again because they literally make money. And also this money is worth more than anything else in the galaxy because it's real gold or real Republic credits. Like these are, that this whole thing is like the jackpot. He found Treasure Planet. Yeah. And now, and instead of like self-destructing itself like the movie Treasure Planet, it's now just a suburbia. It's quite fascinating to, like, especially coming from Tack Renaud's lair, which is like booby-trapped and there's acid and all of these lives lost, and also the contrast between there being a spa on top of it to now going to this other place, which is basically Tack Renaud's like treasure trove, but it's a working society. Is so fascinating, and I'm really excited to see how they finish the story and what direction they go in terms of the impact these actions have on the broader galaxy.
Do you think we're going to get any more answers about Jod? Or is he just a force-sensitive pirate?
I think he's just a force-sensitive pirate.
Yep.
I think that's one of the ways that he's been successful up to this point. And clearly he's just biding his time, keeping it a secret. Because if it was well known that he had the Force, Luke Skywalker is still very active in this time period.
True. That's the thought.
He needs to keep it secret. But let us know your thoughts on this episode as well as the series on a whole so far. What do you think is going to happen as we move forward? Let us know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or contact at uplinkpodcast.com if you're listening to this wherever you find podcasts. As always, thank you for listening. May the Force be with you.